I'm relieved to be exonerated today, but I want to state clearly that fighting these unjust federal charges over the past 7 months was never just about me or my co-defendants in this case. Contesting these charges was about our collective First Amendment rights. It was about fighting for a justice system that actually serves the interests of justice and the public, not the whims of those who are in power. And it was about our neighbors, more vulnerable than us, who have been targeted unfairly by this administration and who deserve peaceful, dignified lives alongside us. I went to protest at the Broadview ICE detention facility back in September because I believe in our democratic values and for standing up for our neighbors and for exercising our rights to speak out against wrongs.
When you reporters see what happened in that grand jury, it should shame every single American that we have a Department of Justice that hides behind the grand jury in selling these indictments against Mr. Comey, against Don Lemon, against Brian Straw and the rest of the Broadview Six by saying, hey, it's not us, we have a grand jury, a fair and impartial grand jury. Shame when you see what they did behind closed doors with no defense counsel, with no judge, when prosecutors are allowed to influence improperly these grand jurors so that they can vote, so that Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche can get out there and say, hey, grand jury did it, not us. Don't look at us for political prosecutions. Shame. It is gross conduct. As a former federal prosecutor of 15 years, both in this office and in the Miami office, I have never even heard of something as bad as what took place in this grand jury session. We're talking about vouching, which again is 101 no-no for any prosecutor. We're talking about kicking out grand jurors who disagreed with the indictment. We're talking about a no true bill being returned and no disclosure of that to the public or to the defense.
As much as this is a huge relief for all of us, this isn't justice. This case should have never been tried in the first place. This was unjust prosecution at its very core. But that's the point. All of us are normal people, and we have been subjected to hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees, of immeasurable stress in our lives. The point of cases like this is the financial and psychological torture. That is what this government is trying to do. We were exercising our First Amendment rights, and yes, we've been a part of this case. Yes, there have been a lot of cameras on us, like right now. Yes, we have been a part of something big, but also we're individual people.
I have worked in organizing and politics for long enough to be jaded and to think that some people are not willing to stand up and only say they are, and that this case, as terrible as it has been, as great a weight it has been on me, my family, my community, the people I love, as terrible as it has been, and it has been truly awful from beginning to end, I have stood with my co-defendants, with my legal counsel, with the many other lawyers that we had to bring in on this case. There were 14 defending us today. I have stood shoulder to shoulder with these people as they have said, enough is enough. We are not going to simply back down. We are not simply going to take a plea, even though it is the expectation every time someone walks into this building that they're not going to trial, that it will be a plea. I cannot say with more certainty than I feel right now that there are people in this world who want to stand up and fight, and they are capable of winning. They did so today, and they will continue to do so. I'm so thankful to know every single one of them.
On September 26, 2025, I was determined to show up at Broadview and speak out against the unjust and inhumane conditions there. I was proud to stand up for communities that were being terrorized by ICE and neighbors who were kidnapped and disappeared by ICE. As the son of an immigrant, I was proud to fight for the human rights of immigrants here in Chicago and everywhere. We cannot stand idly by when witnessing injustice. We have a moral responsibility to stand up for the corrupt, immoral, and destructive actions of the Trump administration. This case was clearly about Trump and his Department of Justice's campaign of retribution against Democrats and Chicago. Trump and his authoritarian regime have weaponized the federal government against its own people, an extraordinary abuse of power. The Trump administration is trying to silence us, to create fear, to break us so we won't speak up. But they won't succeed. We are winning.
And to be clear, we still have not seen the grand jury transcripts ourselves. We understand that we will get an opportunity to see them. But based on Judge Perry's characterization, we also understand that there were some grand jurors who dissented from the government's case and yet were basically, as we understand, prohibited from continuing to deliberate because they were dissenting voices from the government's perspective on the case. And that is outrageous. So we look forward to actually reviewing those transcripts and discerning what has happened, but that's what we understand.
I've been on national security cases involving international terrorism, been on domestic terrorism cases with people trying to detonate explosives. I have never seen such a warped approach to a case like this one, which involved, at the end of the day, a case that whittled down from 6 to 4 defendants, from a conspiracy that was bogus from the start, to a misdemeanor that involved touching of an SUV that was driving through. And all the defense attorneys thought when Boutros was vilifying, using Judge Perry's words, vilifying our clients still, we had to hold our tongues. Because one of the hardest things we had to decide today was to continue this trial, because every single one of these individuals wanted their day in court, wanted to prove, wanted to show that these charges were preposterous. In this entire, as I'm sitting here looking at everybody here, and this experience is surreal. For a misdemeanor charge to have this severity of misconduct, it is a cover-up of what was happening, and it is a cover-up that continued today when, with due respect to Mr. Boutros, and I'll give him credit for dismissing the case, but it only became true when Judge Perry, and all credit to her as well, finally put her foot down. If she had not done that, we would be going to trial, and this cover-up would have continued. And why, in a case like this, when it doesn't happen in the most serious cases, when there's actual harm, when there's actual danger? Why is a question that you should be asking. And it's why, because these 4 individuals, the 6 that started, the thousands that had the courage to stand up to this administration, were acting in that manner and refused to fold. And it only took Judge Perry today demanding that these transcripts be shown, that we're here right now, that they finally knew they had run out of road. They finally knew that the time had come where they could not make more excuses. They cannot play games. They could not splice words like they had been doing up until this point.